This is the Calea Victoriei, Victory Way, in the heart of Bucharest, Romania. This city was once called the Paris of the East. I'm Oliver North. This is War Stories. Like most of Eastern Europe during World War II, Romania was trapped in the jaws of hell between Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. Under the boot of their fascist dictator Ion Antonescu, some 19 million Romanians were forced into a reluctant alliance with the Third Reich. It was a bitter pill for all, none more so than for their young King Michael. In tonight's episode, meet brave Americans who were fought in and were rescued from this then unknown part of the world. And in an exclusive interview with King Michael of Romania, hear the story of an inexperienced monarch caught in a tangled web between East and West. Eastern Europe, one of the most overlooked chapters of World War II. These are pictures from that forgotten front. Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Romania. This outer edge of Europe has been called the lands between, a region defined by its vulnerability to shifts in power between its dominant neighbors. During World War II, it was caught in a vice. To the west, an obvious enemy, Adolf Hitler. To the east, lurking in the shadows, ruthless Joseph Stalin. Though officially an ally, he'd already murdered at least 7 million of his own people and had sinister plans to expand his communist empire. For the thousands of Americans who found themselves in these foreign lands, it's a place they'll always remember.
That one woman in Romania, I'll never forget that woman for giving me my life again.
I realized that we were in for trouble, but not for a minute did I want to quit.
During the 1930s, the Fuhrer and his Nazi Party henchmen plotted European domination from their mountaintop refuge in the German village of Berchtesgaden. Crown Prince Michael of Romania was only 17 when he and his father, King Carol II, met Hitler in 1938. Was he surrounded by military people?
Oh, with all their assistants. Oh, the black one.
Michael of Hohenzollern is one of the last surviving heads of state from World War II. We met him at Elizabeta Palace in Bucharest. On the two extremes, you have the communists on the left trying to influence politics in Romania. You have the Iron Guard and its fascist perspective trying to influence politics on the other extreme.
The Bolsheviks were already in power. That's hard to infiltrate here also. And slowly, there was a sort of an extreme right movement. Fifth column, we call it.
The so-called Iron Guard was the most prominent rightist movement. King Carol II, he was no friend of democracy.
Professor Keith Hitchens penned 20 books and has spent over 40 years studying Romania. He teaches history at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Romania becomes an essential part of the German war machine even before the war starts.
Germany is playing a very clever game in Eastern Europe. They're using their German economic power to woo Yugoslavia, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland.
In Hitler's government, do they recognize particularly the need for oil?
Absolutely.
By August 1939, Hitler had already annexed Austria and part of Czechoslovakia. 1,000 miles away, Joseph Stalin purged, killed, and enslaved millions of his own people while making secret plans to Sovietize Europe all the way to the English Channel. It was the clash of titans, and Romania was caught in the middle.
German Foreign Minister von Ribbentrop flies to Moscow to sign the German-Russian non-aggression treaty. The announcement of that pact was the bombshell.
8 days before the Blitzkrieg on Poland, Hitler and Stalin struck a monumental deal, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact.
But then there was a secret part of the treaty in which they essentially divided up Eastern Europe. They decided, for example, how much of Poland each side would get. The Soviet Union was given a free hand in Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania.
News of this arrangement stunned the world, especially the young prince's father, King Carol. because Stalin also had his eyes on the easternmost Romanian province, Bessarabia. From 1812 to 1918, Bessarabia had been part of Tsarist Russia. Following the Bolshevik Revolution and the end of the First World War, it declared independence from the new Soviet regime and voted to be unified with Romania.
And that is when they call it the Greater Romania.
Greater Romania, including Transylvania and Bessarabia, came into being at the end of World War I, following the Treaty of Versailles. With these newly acquired territories, the kingdom had a population of 15 million, rich in oil, timber, and coal. It was also home to vampire lore and the infamous Vlad the Impaler, better known as Count Dracula.
Hungary would like to recover Transylvania. Soviet Russia never recognized the loss of Bessarabia.
The situation was getting a bit out of hand. So all these things weakened my father's position quite a lot.
King Carol was in the midst of a national catastrophe.
And then we got the ultimatum from the Russians in 1940.
The Romanians had to leave very quickly.
Stalin got what he wanted, Bessarabia and the smaller province of northern Bukovina. By 3 July 1940, nearly 4 million people and 20,000 square miles of territory were firmly in Soviet hands. Just when King Carol thought it couldn't get worse, another blow.
Hungary demanded back Transylvania.
Romanians considered Transylvania to be the cradle of their nation. Like Bessarabia, it officially became part of Romania after the First World War. But Hungary had held it since the Middle Ages and wanted it back. Hitler personally brokered the deal.
And the German delegation, I believe literally, pulled a map out in which the boundary lines had already been made as to what Hungary would get, and made it very plain to the Romanians that they could accept or suffer consequences.
Because France had fallen.
Absolutely.
Britain was being bombed.
Absolutely. And what was on the minds of all Romanian political leaders was what had happened to Poland. And there was great fear that Germany and the Soviet Union would simply decide to divide up Romania.
Romania lost 6 million people and a third of her territory with the cession of Transylvania, Bessarabia, and northern Bukovina. King Carol was devastated.
One disaster after another. You can't survive. So what he does is he looks around for somebody who can save him.
One of them was the cavalry general, the famous Antonescu.
The 58-year-old Ion Antonescu was born in the riverside town of Petești, 60 miles northwest of Bucharest. A pro-Hitler anti-Semite, Antonescu had long been a ruthless critic of King Carol.
But Carol, in this situation, knows that he's got to do something drastic or he's out. So he appoints Antonescu as prime minister. And one of the first things that Antonescu does is to demand that Carol abdicate. And Carol has no choice and abdicates.
Suddenly I found myself in the wind, so to speak.
Crown Prince Michael was only 19 when his father abdicated in September of 1940. A teenager becomes king in the midst of war. That's next on War Stories.